Next, we've got Craig Pearce, and he's going to be talking about the future of security. So here he is, Craig Wilfred Pearce. He's been a lecturer at RMIT. He's worked at so many big institutions. He's travelled around the world, given lectures at universities and also at Linux conferences and security conferences. So yeah, here's Craig Pearce.
Thanks. Can everyone hear me okay with the microphone? Yeah. Okay, excellent. Thanks for revealing my middle name. I like to hide that as well. So, great. Okay, so I've been in computer security for a number of years. So I was 16 when I first got interested in it, when I downloaded something dodgy off the internet and got a Trojan, lost all my information. That's interesting. How does that work? So that was the start for me. I went down the academic route, started a PhD, decided it's more fun being a penetration tester or ethical hacking. So I left the PhD to do that, and then worked for several years as a security solutions designer. So basically designing, building, integrating solutions to try and get as much security while sort of concentrating on the business need as well. These days I've made the transition from network infrastructure security into application security, because that's where I think the Wilfred's are now. I haven't had a lot of history in terms of futurism and human machine consciousness and such, but it's something that I've started to get more and more interested in the last 18 months or so. So basically, some of the things that I've heard over the last Tuesday night as well as yesterday is a lot of the talks talking about things such as risk. I heard the precautionary principle yesterday, safety, privacy, control, those sorts of terms. So it's almost like the social and ethical aspects. It's one of those things that people mention but don't go into very deeply. So it'll be interesting who does solve those problems when we go further into machine intelligence. What I'll be talking about is a bit of a history behind IT security, so information security specifically, not things like physical security or financial security, such as instruments and such. And I'll then talk about the current state, where I perceive the current state to be, as well as some ideas that I've got for the future. Okay, so just to sort of scope the presentation, the three tenets behind information security are the C, I and A, which is confidentiality, so being able to keep information secret where it needs to be. Integrity, which is ensuring that data hasn't been maliciously tampered with. And availability, so system uptime, ensuring that there's business continuity. The other three things within security as well is that securities aren't simple tools or applications that you can click to install and suddenly you're secure. It is that combination of people, process and technology which is very well known within the security community. And that it was interesting to see the enterprise architecture stuff yesterday where people, process and technology was shown, as well as introducing environments and then drawing down further from there. The actual talk, I saw the talk was Empowerment Through Technological and Social Change. This talk of mine is basically that, but removing the word empowerment and thinking about security considerations. Security isn't a leader in this sort of space, it typically is a follower. Unfortunately, security is bolted onto systems after they're designed quite often, as opposed to being designed into the systems as they come about. Some of the page turners that I think within the last 100 years of information security, this will be ITS telling me that the network is back up. So I'll just go to this now because I know the network's back up. Some of the page turners is the infamous Enigma machine in the 1930s when it was designed and obviously used during World War II. Obviously, the likes of Alan Turing worked on the breaking of the Enigma machine. The 1960s with the development of ARPANET and the Unix operating system. The 70s, the pathways into what became the PC in 1981 and Usenet on the internet, obviously well before the likes of the World Wide Web. The 1980s, TCP becoming more commonplace. So a lot of security attacks within TCP, so session hijacking, Windows being attacked, fixation attacks and all sorts of things. Basically, all of the internet protocols that we use today were designed at least 30 years ago, and security wasn't a major consideration back then. I mean, even if it was, the people designing the protocols, it is hard to future-proof such things. So you can design system security for known attacks, but it's the unknown unknowns which you can't really easily account for. Phreaking was, that's when phreaking was a little bit bigger in the 1980s. We all know Steve Wozniak had a side business selling blue boxes for some side income, which was basically used to make free telephone calls. Phreaking is probably the precursor to the underground hacking type communities. A lot of phone phreakers were also computer hackers. 1988 saw the Morris worm, which effectively took down most of the internet. That was written by Robert Morris, son of a senior Department of Defence official. Robert Morris these days is a professor at MIT, I believe. As well as hacker groups such as Legion of Doom and Chaos Computer Club. So all of these subcultures, underground type subcultures, were starting to form. The 1990s, the World Wide Web was the obvious one with explosion, the introduction of secure electronic commerce, of which we then saw a $2 million heist from Citibank. That's an online web-based attack. Kevin Mitnick, one of the most famous social engineers, which he made the front page of the New York Times. Before that, most living rooms, people hadn't really known all that much about attackers. Certainly, a lot of you would have from the whole cypherpunk type movement and sci-fi literature. And crypto wars as well. So in the 90s, the US had laws in terms of exporting cryptographic ciphers. So that certainly was something that's since been changed, but there were efforts such as printing out source code of cryptographic algorithms on t-shirts and putting them into books and things, trying to get them out of the country and into the country and being able to get around the legal constraints that was stopping that from happening in the common sort of way. Early 2000s, distributed denial of service attacks, taking down the likes of eBay, WorldCom, you name it. If there's a target and the botnet being big enough, then the site will generally go down. They're very hard to protect against. So it's basically pumping more requests at a public-facing service than the service can handle, and there's not much that the operator can do about it, except maybe pay the extortion costs or just take the site down until the attackers go away and find another target. Malware, so there's been a huge explosion of malware. We've got some trends in terms of malware, as well as some of the more interesting examples of what malware has affected. The mid-2000s, some of the page turners, I believe, are the very large-scale privacy breaches. We're talking about hundreds of millions of records that then lead to the likes of identity theft. Botnets, which are basically I guess an attack vehicle for whatever exploit payload you like, be it a distributed denial of service attack or keystroke login to exfiltrate information or something else. The other big thing that was happening probably 5-ish years ago, it's always been there, but it's been a much larger increase, is security vendor consolidation. So companies such as, say, WebWasher for your web proxy URL filtering were snuggled up by Secure Computing, which was then snuggled up by McAfee, which a couple of weeks ago is now bought by Intel. So we're seeing the security companies really moving into the top 5 or 6 large-scale companies such as your HPs, IBMs, Computer Associates, Intel now, and the like. So it's interesting where the security industry is going there. Here's a bit of a timeline in terms of security attacks. So the 1980s, the effort or attack sophistication was much lower than what we consider today, and that makes sense, and of course it's a natural progression, but the attacks were really password guessing, brute force password cracking, some self-replicating viruses that might have been infecting root sectors or memory resident type programs. Backdoors as well, and logic bombs where malicious employees might just put in a function into the code so that the program will do something on a certain date, or it might be doing some salami slicing of fractional percentages of dollar transfers or something like that. And session hijacking based on typically TCP back in the late 80s, early 1990s. What we see now though is the attack types are getting more and more sophisticated. So obviously with the explosion of the World Wide Web, we're seeing mostly, or a heck of a lot of web-based attacks now, such as your injection-based attacks on HTML, JavaScript, SQL, command injection, as well as cross-site scripting as well. Cross-site scripting is an interesting one in terms of the amount of damage that can actually do, and it's quite simple attack to pull off, and very easy for a programmer, web-based programmer, to actually miss when it comes to cross-site scripting. That's the thing about attack and defense, is that a defender needs to be able to cater for all of the holes, whereas an attacker really only needs to find one hole to be able to perform the attack. The other interesting thing is intruder knowledge over time has really gone from needing a high level of knowledge to break a system down to very low level knowledge. In fact, it is that it's come to that point now where you can basically jump onto YouTube, do a search, and see how to exploit certain vulnerability. So I'll just play this for a second, but this is the Windows link vulnerability from a few weeks ago, predicted vulnerability in the XOR version of Windows, and the new operating system controls in Windows 7 for stack smashing protection and data execution protection aren't enough to be able to protect this sort of attack. So all a script kiddie, if you like, needs to do is jump onto YouTube, do a search, and see a canned example of how to perform these attacks using the likes of a open source Linux-based distribution, running automatic attack tools such as Metasploit and Nessus and the like. Just follow the steps and go from there. In fact, there's recent Metasploit advancements to be able to do what's known as auto-owning. So having bots that basically just do that whole network reconnaissance, looking for open targets, certain services running on known ports, checking the service version numbers, and then automatically running the exploits against those to build up those large botnets. Yeah, we probably don't need to go through the whole video here, but it's just showing you an example of how easy it is for attackers to be able to perform an attack against vulnerable targets. The other thing I want to mention on this slide is that while the attack sophistication has dropped dramatically, and we're up here in terms of the tools and such, all of these other issues back here that were happening in the 80s and 90s are still happening. So the attack surface is getting greater, the types of attack methods against our system is growing over time as well. So let's have a look at malware. This is a sample from a 5-year period from A/B test, which collects and analyses malware. We don't see exponential growth in terms of the growth of the malware collection, but what we're seeing is growth faster than linear. So it's growing at a faster rate each year. And this is all malware, which some of it really gets out there and does damage. It's generally a handful of types of malware, whereas a lot of it lays fairly dormant. Malware writers, a lot of them basically take someone else's piece of work, just change it a little bit to try and get their name out there to see how it goes. There's sites such as virustotal.com where you can submit something which you think is suspicious and put it through 8 or 10 different AV or antivirus engines to see which ones pick it up, to get a bit of a feel for whether it's dangerous or not. So attackers started using this as well to see which AV engines wouldn't pick up their malware so they could release it. But of course then, it's an arms race. So from there what happened was that the AV test companies would put it straight into the collection if it's dodgy so that it can't do too much damage. So then the cybercrime people put up their own AV test sites underground and then restrict access just to malware writers. So it's interesting how these sorts of things evolve. Some interesting things from this is that 2008 it was reported that the International Space Station was infected with malware. This was due to astronauts taking USB keys containing games for their entertainment up into space. 2010 it's been reported that the Spanish air crash back in 2008, which killed, I think it's over 100 people, the onboard computers or computer was infected with several variants of malware. So it's, they believe that there's a strong chance that that was part of the reason why the plane crashed. Basically, the plane took off with the loins fully open as opposed to fully closed. It might have been the other way around, but it's something that the onboard computer should have picked up, as well as the pilots as well, for the sort of the failback safety, but both the computer and the pilots missed it, and the plane went down. Does anyone know who wrote the first computer virus? Roughly back in about 1968, 1969? Anybody? Give you a clue. The answer's on the board there. Gregory Benford.
Yes, and he spoke on Tuesday at our conference, so he's the very first hacker speaking at our summit. How about that?
So if you do a search, I think, for scarred face, you can read about that. Okay, so that's one piece of malware. The second piece I wanted to talk about with the natural evolution of security is where attacks have gone from and where they're going to. So there's been a lot of concentration in network-based attacks and defences, in firewalls, proxies, that kind of jazz. And I think roughly 80% of the security spend is still in the network space. However, the more interesting targets these days are the web-based attacks, and that's the things that your network layer firewalls don't pick up, because every firewall generally has ports 80 and 443 and the like open, because people need to be able to surf the web. What that means though is, while 80% of the security spend is in the network layer, 80% of the attacks are actually at the web application layer. There hasn't been enough done in that space yet to be able to provide adequate defences there. Got a couple of graphs here. So what we see is the total vulnerability count for the web browser. We can see that's growing probably very rapidly there, potentially at an exponential sort of rate at the moment, until we get better at preventing against that. And plugins as well. Plugins have a real problem when it comes to web browsers, whether it's ActiveX controls or even Firefox plugins. There's been malicious Firefox plugins written to log keystrokes and send them to third-party sites. We also see the web application year-on-year growth of attacks. And recently we saw new attacks such as clickjacking. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of clickjacking before, but there was a Facebook clickjacking attack where you install an application, nice flashy game, you click on things, but it's an overlay to something behind the scenes. What's happening behind the scenes is if you've got Facebook open, you're actually adding a friend, sending a friend a message to install this application. It ends up being a worm for Facebook. If, for example, let's take a country where someone would use the same type of bank and the same sort of search engine. So if you had a clickjacking attack against a search engine that a lot of people are using, and they logged into the bank at the same time, you would then have a pop-up, you're clicking on things, you might end up doing a bank transfer to someone without knowing it. Similar with man-in-the-browser type attacks. We've probably heard of man-in-the-middle attacks where someone gets on the network and intercepts the communications, potentially modifies them and passes them on. Attacks have evolved into man-in-the-browser, so the organised crime has had to move there because banks have gone to two-factor authentication and higher-value transactions using key fobs as opposed to passwords, so that the window of opportunity drops to 30 seconds or a minute for each authentication. And banks have also gone to transaction-based authentication instead of just initial authentication of the application itself. So what organised crime have done there is have Trojans that insert themselves into the web browser itself, using regular expressions to match certain banking sites, and then modifies the information between the user and the host, passing it back onto the bank. And it's hard for the bank to know whether it's the user or a Trojan acting on the user's behalf that is performing that action. Of course, these Trojans have moved to a point where there's real-time monitoring, so there's that whole feedback loop back to the attackers, as well as the attackers using social networking and such in order to be able to gain that information and make use of it there and then. Saw John Stewart, who's the internal CSO, or Chief Security Officer of Cisco. He was at OSCER, which is the annual Australian Security Conference, back in May. He was projecting the growth of applications and the internet and such. So basically, he sees a factor of 10 increase for the number of applications that we have got in use. Roughly doubling or doubling and a half of the internet traffic in exabytes per month. And the number of devices per person, that's actually gone up more than a factor of 10. So he sees that in 3 years' time, each of us will have probably 140 devices. It's hard to imagine, but if you consider, I've got a phone. We're talking about network-based devices here too, so I've probably got 6 or 7. But I guess if we start to think about more and more devices being internet enabled, like the latest television and Blu-ray player I've got are all internet connected to get their live updates and such. Mobile phones, of course. In fact, I bought a couple of mobile phones as props for later on, but I've got a couple of, just out of interest, a couple of brick phones which are very secure because the analog mobile phone system was turned off 18 years ago. So, plus the batteries are flat now, I can't get replacement batteries. But, I've got a briefcase phone which this was, I'm sure, much more secure in the day because of the attack surface is just not there like the modern phones. This thing doesn't have Bluetooth, doesn't have a wireless chip in it. We saw it at DEF CON back in late July, early August, which I was there for, that GSM has been compromised to a point where someone was able to spend $2,000, build up a base station and be able to intercept calls, have phones automatically connect to their GSM tower and intercept those calls because of the encryption ciphers have been broken for some time in the theoretical mathematical world, which has now made it into practice. The other interesting thing I wanted to talk about John Stewart's projections is the number of security threats. So at the moment, he believes there's roughly 2.6 million security threats, which is going to more than double in 3 years' time. And no one actually, I've had a bit of search, no one's really projecting much further than sort of 3 to 5 year period. We can't sort of get any useful insights into these people's minds in terms of how things are going to be in sort of 20 and 30 years' time. So complexity is the other topic I wanted to briefly mention. I'm sure a lot of you have actually seen this, but complexity is typically the enemy to security. These couple of graphs here is basically a system call graph between 2 common web servers, be it Apache and Microsoft IIS. And what you see there is the structure of the system call. So this is presumably much less complex because there looks to be some structure in what's happening for a single HTTP request. Lots of system calls though. Whereas IIS, it looks like a big bowl of spaghetti all jumbled up. So complexity is the enemy to security. I will say though that Microsoft has certainly changed their internal practices from a secure development lifecycle perspective, as opposed to bolting security on at the end. The security activities are being performed when stuff is being done. So doing security architecture reviews at the architecture phase, doing code reviews at the development phase, file testing in the testing phase of the project and such. So what that has seen actually is the likes of IIS and SQL Server have got much fewer vulnerabilities than their competitors such as Apache in the web server space and Oracle in the database space. But that's been the biggest problem is security has not been built into the systems. It's been tacked on at the end. So using tools and button clicks to try and get security, which we know is not effective. Patch management, that's what I believe that's also generally a lost battle. I mean, it needs to be done, but if there's a vulnerability in the product and the vendor's notified, gets a patch out, it gets installed, but the lag time between that is crazy. So the vendor might be able to get a patch after fully testing it, making sure there's no other regressions that might cause within maybe a 30-day period or a 60-day period. Sometimes it's a week or so if it's very critical. But it then goes to a install environment to be put on and updated, but that might take even more time doing all the regression testing against the applications. It could be several months before a vulnerability is patched. And of course, the attackers getting that quicker right in the targeted malware that they might be a day or two of getting that out there. So you've got that window of opportunity for the attackers. And of course, I've seen a lot of zero-day exploits, which means that the attacker finds an issue and instead of notifying the security company, they write the malware, sell it, and that starts getting exploited before the vendor even knows there's an issue. So we've seen underground internet sites such as Wabi Sabi, there's a few others as well, who are buying these exploits. We're talking of tens of thousands of dollars for individual exploits because the organised crime are making good money out of online issues. The other major trend in the that we've seen is identity theft. So these are just a raw number of incidents for privacy breaches. It's grown dramatically, probably because there's many more web-connected databases containing interesting customer records. 2009 has reduced, which is probably a good thing. Whether that's due to the likes of California's 1418 bill to notify individuals if their data has been compromised, it's hard to know, but it's certainly gone down. But one thing I do want to mention on this slide is that while these are raw incidents, some of those incidents contained within those graphs are basically Heartland Payment Systems back in 2009 had 130 million records compromised containing customer financial details and personally identifiable information. TJX in 2007 had 94 million records. Back in 2005, Card Systems, who's basically a payment processor for Visa, MasterCard, Amex and the like, had 40 million records compromised. In fact, Card Systems itself shouldn't have been storing those details in the first place. It was supposed to pass through the system. So data in transit, if you like, as opposed to having data at rest. Important thing to differentiate there. How many people do you think it took for those three attacks? So 130, 94 and 40 million, that's roughly 250, 260 million records. How many people do you think it took to be able to pull those up? Sorry?
5 or so?
5 or so? Pretty close. Roughly 2. So one of the two was a Cuban, I can't remember his first name now, Albert Gonzalez, I think it was, who he got in trouble as a high school student for hacking into library computers and such. Got into a bit more strife after he turned 18, doing some identity theft, and then joined the FBI as an informant. And while he was an informant for the FBI, he continued doing the real attacks. His co-conspirator was an employee of Stanley Morgan Bank in the States. So one of the issues here is trust. It's a really hard problem. How do you trust individuals? What do you trust them with, and how much trust do you give them? And what controls are put in place to be able to monitor those trust levels? And it's something to think about for our machine overlords if and when they come as well. What controls can we put in place? Is there a kill switch? Do we need a kill switch? I won't spend too much time on this graph, but this is basically just showing the spread of types of data loss. The most common being stolen laptops that obviously mustn't have hard drive encryption, or if they do, then it's being able to be circumvented. Web-based attacks, so breaking through to a backend database, potentially via SQL injection or another form of attack. And outright hacking is another, the third most common example for data loss and privacy breaches. I talk about organised crime and how that's certainly basically really come up fast. I mean, back in the 80s there was a lot of hacktivism, people doing it for their own egos and that whole power trip, but it's really moved. It's probably the same people with the same mentalities performing the attacks, but now they're being backed by organised crime, because organised crime are making good money out of it, so they're paying these attackers to be able to compromise systems. And the attackers who are probably in poorer countries, who may not have the best job prospects, it's probably a good thing for them individually. It's hard to be prosecuted because the transporter legalities are very complex. It might be operating out of a country that doesn't have extradition or doesn't have computer security and data privacy laws. And being so far away, it's probably hard for them to empathise with the victims. The attacks aren't just simple attacks. We've seen some very complex attacks as well. So Eastern Europe, ATM build basically. So someone within the inside who had access to the build of ATM software put a Trojan on the ATMs. They shipped out to parts of Eastern Europe. And basically what was happening there is you insert your ATM card into a machine. The card holder information was being stored in a triple-desk encrypted file. Then when certain certain specific hard-coded card numbers were inserted by the criminals, the print receipt roller would print out all of the captured card information in triple-desk encrypted form. So they could take it back to their own computers, decrypt it, and then produce their own cards. So that's a pretty sophisticated sort of attack, combination of outside and inside influences. So it all comes down to risk. Big enterprises have risk teams, quite often will have a chief risk officer, and the types of threats are thought about, and then it comes down to the likelihood of a threat being exercised and the potential business impact if it is realised. So here's an example 5x5 matrix that comes straight out of AS 4360, the Australian standards, which is now really being part of the ISO 27000 series. But it's a good approach. I like being able to calculate the potential risk of a threat and then work out if it's important enough, do the cost-benefit analysis, then consider spending the money to put in the mitigating controls. The problem I've got though is humans are really bad at calculating risk. Where we really fall down is those black swan events, the unknown unknowns. So a black swan event or an unknown unknowns is basically something you don't think about until it happens. It's got a major impact, and once it's happened, it's obvious that it was going to happen. An example might be the computer-based high-frequency trading from the New York Stock Exchange, which saw some stock prices really plummet. I think it was early this year actually, and 240 stocks had to be reversed. All of the trading on those stocks for over a day's worth of trading basically was undone, which was quite amazing. Same thing with computer simulations. So computer simulations typically have a fixed model, and they do try and attempt to consider the known unknowns, but it's those unknown unknowns. It's the variables which you don't consider that cause the great issues. The other thing about risk as well is, I think it's been mentioned, we are afraid of change, but typically when we do have those new technologies, obviously they're not mature because they're new, a lot of the security impacts haven't actually been realised at that point, haven't been thought about, fleshed out and mitigated against. It's been a lot of, one of the things that has come out of this conference is climate change. So obviously you're all not as geeky as I am, you seem to get outdoors and appreciate the environment. I've got a much more scarier, shorter term issue. It's not climate change. Does anyone know what that is? It's another sort of constant, it's another set of resources being managed badly. Peak oil? We're about to run out.
Peak oil?
Sorry?
Peak oil?
Peak oil? Yeah, that would probably affect me if I got out more as well. But, and it will affect me if I don't get out. But, IP addresses, that's right. Does anyone know when we are most likely going to run out of IP addresses, IP version 4 addresses? Tomorrow? End of this year? Pretty close, yeah, it's less than a year away. So people have been talking about this for 15 years. IP version 6 has been, the standards were written 15 years ago. Most modern operating systems have IP version 6 support, except it's very hard to migrate from version 4 to version 6. Well, basically, the problem here is constants, again. So similar to year 2000, it's making those fixed decisions at design time, which then gets implemented, and suddenly you realise, okay, didn't expect that to happen. So when IP version 4 was written, we didn't expect to need to address publicly more than 4.1 billion hosts on the internet. But of course, with things like smart meters and general explosion of the internet, 4.1 billion addresses isn't enough. So we've gone to something ridiculous, such as 2 to the power of 128, which I couldn't imagine we'll ever realise, which is good, it's future-proofing. But it's hard to go from one to the other. It's very hard. Okay. Some trends that I sort of see and think might happen. At the moment, these are the obvious ones because they're happening at the moment. Obviously, business to consumer and consumer to consumer are well-proven models of the internet, but what we're seeing is criminal to criminal. So basically, malware infecting Trojans and such are being sold between criminal organisations for good money. So if we take Zeus as an example, which is a man in the browser type of attack, that's being sold with all the features, all of the nasty stuff combined. It's being sold for sums of $4,000 or $5,000. So we're talking about a decent amount of money here. Very professionally developed applications, nice interface. It's got all of the utilities, the maintainability, extensibility, the usability and such. And this is malware. So what attackers, so we take Zeus for example, that this is a real-time feed of all of the Zeus command and control type systems out there. So these are all let's have a look here. Yeah. So these are all command and control servers that have a bunch of Zeus-infected computers that they are then able to exercise attack payloads with. And the attack payload is somewhat arbitrary. Usually this is for stealing keystrokes and doing banking transactions with via the user's browser without them knowing. But it could also be distributed denial of service attacks. Looks like we've got one in Melbourne at the moment and potentially one in Alice Springs.
Why Alice Springs?
Why Alice Springs? Yeah,
we got lost.
we're a bit luckier in Australia in that we are further away geographically. Our internet pipe to the rest of the world isn't fantastic, and the number of attack targets in Australia, how many internet-connected devices have we got? I don't know, maybe 20 to 40 million, if we assume that on average everyone's got at least two. But the large concentrations, as you see, are North America and Europe. That's where there are lots and lots of computers. Got fast flux trackers as well, which basically, when a dodgy, how am I going to say this? So, basically when a dodgy site is found, as an example, such as a phishing site, or it might be a command and control network, either the ISP that manages the internet connectivity for those malicious hosts is told to take down the site or the user's service, and that's generally done based on IP address. So, and they can also be blocked at firewalls by IP address. So attackers have moved into what's known as DNS fast flux. So having a common DNS name, which can point to a whole multitude of IP addresses, it might round robin those, randomise them, or whatever else. So it makes it a much harder problem to be able to take down these sites. You can't just start blocking an IP address because that IP address is going to change within seconds. It's very much harder to defend against. So what some defenders have actually started doing is attacking the attackers. It's probably not it's a legal grey area, of course, but the attackers are making the same mistakes as the defenders because the attackers are writing tools, the defenders are writing tools, and it is hard to write secure code. So we see attackers being compromised with their own attacks, such as SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and whatever else. Attackers are moving towards peer-to-peer based command and control networks. So they used to be able to control their zombies within the botnets via IRC channels. We're talking about automatic control of these hosts, sending commands and whatever else. That was done by IRC. That then moved to HTTP based to make that much more resilient because HTTP gets through firewalls, IRC commonly doesn't these days. But it's now moving into peer-to-peer based to make it that much more resilient. So if you take down one command and control server, you've got all these other ones in a distributed sort of fashion. Okay, some other trends, search engine optimization hacking. So getting that phishing site up to trick users into thinking it's a real site by making the site look the same, but also putting the right keywords in so that the site may get ahead of the real site when you do a search for it. So if you took, for example, going to the USA and having to do one of those visa waiver forms because Australia's part of the visa waiver program, you'll see a whole bunch of sites that get up there pretty close if you do a search for visa waiver. I saw one of them which was actually being run out of Korea. They're charging, I think, $48 for an application when the application should be free. If you haven't gone to the States before or done your research, then you may not realise that, and unless you start digging behind the scenes, doing DNS whoisers and such to see where the website was registered from, you'll believe it is the actual site because it looks the same. Interesting what the site does, in this case the Korean managed site, is it actually does submit the visa waiver form for you. It just takes the money as well, which you shouldn't have to give up money for. So that's search engine optimization. Industrial espionage, I probably don't need to talk too much about that. I'm sure you've all heard of the Google Aurora type attacks. You may have seen the stuff on Four Corners some months ago with Chinese Whispers, the program was called. Cyber wars. Estonia back in 2007 and Georgia 2008, they were both taken off the internet completely. Appears to be a lot of patriotic and potentially government-based types of cyber attacks. And Iran as well, during the Iranian elections, a lot of the government-sponsored websites were taken off the air due to political activism. So 2010s, well, I think we'll see a lot more critical infrastructure attacks, be it your energy, water type SCADA networks, SCADA being supervisory control and data acquisition, basically critical infrastructure. In the past, critical infrastructure has been physically separated. So you've got your control network and you've got your corporate network. Separate from a mechanical perspective. But due to cost savings and whatever else, a lot of these control networks that manage the programmable logic controllers and whatever else, the valves and you name it, are actually network, they're logically separated but not physically separated. So they've got segregation points such as firewalls and things to try and prevent the nasty stuff from the corporate network, which is obviously somehow connected to the internet, being from the control network. So smartphones I mentioned, the homes are becoming much more internet connected, so we talk about personal area networks and home area networks and the like. Many more devices, much larger attack potential. And also privacy versus, I guess, inverse surveillance, which I'll talk about in an upcoming slide. Medical is probably the other thing. So the medical industry has been a little bit slow in terms of adopting computer technology. I mean, they've got lots of amazing equipment that is network attached, but the whole online records and whatever else, it's been a bit slow with uptake. But we hear about government-sponsored initiatives such as smart health and things. So it'll be interesting to see the types of security attacks that will happen within the next 10 years there. 2020s. I think quantum cryptography will be a bit more of a commodity depending on how quantum computing goes. If quantum computing really comes to fruition at certain qubit sizes, then quantum crypto will certainly have a future, I believe. Homomorphic encryption I'll talk about really briefly, and human hacking as well. So we'll have a look at the slides there. But the general influences behind where computer security is going is basically increased paranoia in people, but obviously the converse to that is people are putting so much information out there to make themselves attack targets, but also obviously the market forces as well. Talking about critical infrastructure, I've just got one slide on that. Worst blackout in North American history was August 2003. That was due to the Microsoft blaster worm infecting a nuclear power plant. Blaster worm was caused due to a single line of code where there was no bounce checking case on a string buffer. So what we see here is a single line of code in this. We've got a while loop here, and the while loop's forming one statement. The while loop itself wasn't checking to see if it was checked at the end of the string or not. So that meant an attacker could write past the end of the string, perform a buffer overflow, arbitrarily execute codes, and compromise the system with system-level privileges. The exploit was written, took over 1.5 million machines, which included the nuclear power plant. So the fix is quite straightforward as well. Obviously the internal developers at Microsoft didn't pick it up, the attackers did, and that was the consequence. Based on that and a few other similar types of malware infestations such as Slammer worm and whatever else, Bill Gates sent a memo to all of his developers, which is roughly a third of the company, so 30,000 developers are here, saying that basically stopping the projects and mandating secure coding training for them to try and fix the issue at the cause, not treating the symptoms by putting in network firewalls and whatever else, but actually fixing the code, because that's where the issues really are. Another trend I see is security and safety intersecting more. Some people falsely believe that security and safety are synonyms. They're not. Safety is basically the preservation of human life and welfare, whereas information security is a protection of information assets. But I believe that security and safety the intersection between the two will increase because we're seeing more and more systems that have human life consequences being network enabled and potentially attackable. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of and maybe ridiculed Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, but certainly there needs to be more work in this space by security conscious individuals and organisations in order to be able to think about the controls as opposed to just mentioning it as a side issue as we quite often do. Similar with the social impacts and ethical impacts, security really does need to be considered, and some concentration spent there for the future future machines. So human firewalls, I'll actually play some background music for this. I'll do is close that guy. So human firewalls, I believe there'll be certainly an increase in terms of human hacking. So we've got we have Tuesday night artist Stellar. Yeah, that's right. So Stellar's got a network-enabled ear implanted onto his arm, which I'm not sure how secure that is, but certainly as we consider more and more implants that are network attached, we could potentially have human hacking. We've seen some psychological control type things, mind control or whatever else potentially. Like we've seen the likes of subliminal messages in TV advertisements. I've got a psychosonic attack playing right now to try and change your mood slightly, which is basically working with the binaural type stuff. Basically, what it's doing is playing some beta waves between the 13 and 40 hertz range to give you a busy or anxious type effect. If I went down to the 8 to 13 hertz range, then that would make you relaxed while being awake. So I'm sure we'll see some more of this, especially from the marketing, advertising type industry to try and influence people. Like if you're at a supermarket, then certain music is played to get you into that relaxed sort of state to buy more groceries. Brainwave manipulation. So certainly as we learn more about the brain, how to read from it, write to it, there will potentially be some attacks there. So we obviously need controls in place to be able to get to that level of comfortability with these sorts of technologies. Human eyeball, so that starts resonating at 18.98 megahertz. So we could certainly, if someone with malicious intent was able to write something to get to that point of resonance, then yeah.
What happens at the start of resonating?
Well, once you get the resonating frequency, it's just going to keep on vibrating. So as per physics. So yeah, I don't know. I've not heard of an eyeball exploding or anything like that. But it'll be interesting to see. I'm not going to try it. But having said that, some scientists do try these sorts of things. I was at Newton's set at the sun for I can't remember how many hours it was, just to see what would happen. And he went blind for a couple of months, but he got his vision back. So I'm sure there will be some people experimenting with this sort of stuff to see what the effects are. Okay, privacy. We've seen those privacy attack slides earlier. People are starting to invest time and money with live recording. The current projections with that current compression and codecs is roughly 200 gigabytes per year are required to record all of your audio, and 700 gigabytes a year for video as well. Obviously we've got a camera working here, everyone's got phones taking pictures and whatever else. There is so much information being recorded, audio, visual, and we've got large search companies investing a lot of money in terms of being able to archive that, aggregate it, data mine it, and triangulate potentially as well. So surveillance from a top-down perspective, we can see CCTV cameras and the like being commonplace. But what we're really starting to see is inverse surveillance, bottom-up basis surveillance, which is known as surveillance, French, both the words being French. So potentially what could happen here is lots of law enforcement might be delegated to us individuals. We might be provided an incentive such as some piece of money for being able to record someone doing something illegal and handing it in. So we might all become potential law enforcement officers just from that perspective in the future, because we've got the devices in order to be able to capture the evidence for certain activities. Privacy rights management, so that's another potential. Obviously the digital rights management approaches that are being used by the media companies to protect music and movies and such, every system that's been designed has been compromised. Obviously, well, the approach there has been if you can observe it, you can copy it. But as these approaches do get more sophisticated, potentially that could be used in a reverse way, where us individuals could use DRM type technologies to protect their own privacy information. Rich Nye is probably the closest thing to a rock star in the security community. Rich Nye recently put up a taxonomy of privacy information. So he sees that service data is the data that you give to a social networking site in order to use it. So the registration information such as your name, email address, potentially a physical address as well. Disclosed data, which is what you post on your own pages, maybe your blog entries, uploading photographs and the like. Entrusted data is the stuff that you post on other people's web pages. You might say a nice wedding photo or something. Incidental data is what other people post about you on their web pages, which you've obviously got no control over. Behavioural data is the data that is collected by these websites. So you might click through certain pages, spend certain time on one page and not the other, all the behavioural analysis. And the derived data, which is basically collecting all of this information. So lots of concentration on data mining, but we're not just giving up the information through all sorts of stuff on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and it's there forever effectively. Once you've actually put it out there, it is very hard to near impossible to be able to bring it back again. I'm going to turn this off, it's making me a little bit queasy. So, crypto. I fumble around with mathematics, I'm very bad at it. There's a good quote from the Good Will Hunting movie actually, that's probably me, except Will Hunting was talking about someone with a Fields Medal, and I'm pretty bad with mathematics. Good with arithmetic, but don't go too much further than that. But what I have read, and I'm sure Hugo will probably pick me up on some incorrect parts of this slide even, but what I have read is that there is a misconception that quantum computers can solve NP-complete or non-polynomial complete problems in polynomial time. So that's something that a lot of people think that probably isn't the case, although many non-polynomial based problems that are not believed to be in the polynomial time could be solvable by quantum computing with the 2 to the power of n qubit type parallelism that can be handled with quantum computing. What does that mean? So if we consider all of our common protocols that we use for public key cryptography, so RSA, pretty good privacy, PKI, SSL all rely on RSA. They can rely on the likes of elliptic curve cryptography as well for a public-private based system. But RSA relies on the difficulty of integer factorisation. So it's easy to multiply 2 large prime numbers to get a composite number, but very hard to take that composite number and derive the 2 large primes that take into format. So with classical computers, it's basically Euler to the power of n to the power of a third. That's the order of growth. As you add basically 1 bit, that's how much the number space grows. And to be able to search the entire key space, obviously you would have to have generated the entire key space for these sorts of algorithms, is the brute force approach is the order of n being the size. Obviously the average would be n divided by 2. With quantum computers using Shor's algorithm, n squared is the order of growth for these integer factorisation based problems. And the brute force is slightly better than the order of n. It's the order of the square root of n, which is quite interesting. It's still probably sort of too big, but much or somewhat easier to solve than the order of n. The other interesting development actually is homomorphic encryption. Homomorphic encryption is one of those open questions in cryptology which a lot of people, mathematicians, didn't think would actually have a solution. There was a solution found last year, I believe, by Craig Gentry. He's been able to come up with a lattice-based structure for homomorphic encryption. So what does that mean? Basically, if you think, let's take cloud computing as an example. So if you've got some information and you want to put it into the cloud, you then have to put full trust in your cloud provider to do the right thing with that information. With homomorphic encryption, basically it means that the ring field structure is preserved under both addition and multiplication. So you could encrypt something, provide that to a service provider, then they could do whatever they needed to do based on the encrypted payload as opposed to the plain text payload. So it means that you don't have to put full trust in business partners or untrusted parties at all. That's pretty much all I had. Actually, one other thing on cryptography. There's a lot of things we just assume are the case. So we believe that prime factorisation is difficult. We don't believe that there are one-way functions that truly exists. There's no actual proof that one-way functions truly exist. If that was to be thrown on its head, then we'd have problems with cryptographic hashing. Pseudo-random number generation as well. So we believe that, for example, the rate of radioactive decay appears to be random. Let's hope it is, because that's what we use for hardware-based random number generation and the like. That's one final thing is probably time. Time's an interesting thing for me. So systems break under time. Last year we had daylight saving start earlier and finish earlier. We had to have a lot of system updates in order to be able to reflect that. And some systems didn't get their updates and issues reports. In fact, the Flinders Street station clock 2 years ago, because we stupidly did the same thing 2 years ago, was an hour slow, I believe. The Telstra clock, when you call it up to get the right time, that was out by an hour as well. And people rely on that for their day-to-day activities at times. But when we design systems, we assume that time moves forward, so it's monotonic. Obviously, when a CMOS battery goes flat in the BIOS, the BIOS is reset to the CMOS battery, time goes backwards, and systems break quite funnily when we go back to 1970 or the time of epoch. The other thing about time as well is leap seconds. Does anyone heard of a leap second? Yeah. I think it's the Astronomical Society that determines when to put a leap second in or not. 2 years ago we had a leap second. When we write input validation programs as programmers, we assume that things go from 0 to 59. You can only have 60 seconds in a minute, but you can actually have 61. So those sorts of things can break as well. When you need that absolute precision of time, it's those sorts of constants that break fundamental assumptions. That's pretty much all I had, so I'll open it up for some questions.
Yeah, we can have a few questions. We're running a little bit behind time, but actually we had a video on after Greg Addison's panel, so if we could just move everything a little bit forward, it'd be okay.
So this is a nice video of a robo mower, which it's not malicious. It has some accidental safety issues. Turn it down. So any questions? Yes?
Okay. Apart from the fact that I now learned that you have musically to make my eyeballs explode and musically to try to make me buy broccoli in the supermarket, you're talking here about actual hackers or somebody deliberately trying to do something. But another part of the security is things like, which I found out to my absolute horror, somebody can start at a MySpace page in your name or something like that. This is something which an employer will look at. I lost 2 jobs because I realized why. Yeah. Because somebody had a MySpace page in my name.
Once the information's out there, it's hard to retract.
It wasn't my information. It was wrong information, but you're actually allowed to do that. And it was only when somebody told me, why are you saying these things about me in your MySpace page? And I said, I don't have one, that I realized I did have one.
Yeah, sure.
And these are another set of problems with security, major problems.
Yeah, identity is one of those unsolved problems. If you've got 2 employees of the same organisation, quite often they'll be getting each other's email, and that can contain sensitive information. I've had that problem with the 2 major banks I've worked at. So there's information I probably received that I shouldn't have received, and it is a hard issue. Taking it into the public space, I guess, if someone's putting stuff about you, all you can really do is get the website owner to take that information down, and the reaction time of actually having that occur, if you're successful, has some lag involved, definitely. So I don't have any real solutions there. It's certainly an issue. Yeah, after that.
Me?
You're a researcher. Yeah.
In 2008, a number of researchers managed to hack a wireless defibrillator unit that's implanted commonly in humans. Do you see security researchers taking a greater role in medical technology in the future?
Yeah, definitely.
So they can actually form a dangerous arrhythmia in a person wirelessly by hacking the wireless protocol.
Most definitely. That's the next 10 years, I think, because there needs to be a large concentration of information security within the medical industry, because it is becoming much more technological. I worry about future bionic ears and pacemakers and other sorts of implants having these attack surfaces that we haven't considered yet. And unfortunately, in the security industry, I think we're struggling things have gotten as bad as I can imagine at the moment in terms of the size of botnets, the attacks that are occurring, the identity theft, the DDoS and the financial fraud. And I think vendors are starting to realise that they're starting to put the proper controls in place, just starting. So, for example, Adobe's next release will be sandboxing, because we've seen zero-day PDF attacks that can compromise systems, and that's just yeah, it's not a good situation to be in. So, when it comes to medical technology, as with everything, security needs to be designed into the system from the get-go. Yeah, you had a question?
Just a few sad tales about hacking on myself. It just might benefit other people. July last year, XP machine desktop Service Pack Release 3 XP, using AVG version 8 point something or other. Went to Officeworks, bought a stack of cheap USB memories, stuck it in, and AVG 8 point whatever it was did not check ports. And those USB memory sticks were just chock-a-block full of Chinese viruses.
So at OSCERT this year, the annual Australian Computer Security Conference, vendors quite often give away USB keys or have some promotional advertising on there and such. So this year it was IBM who actually gave out some memory keys with malware. Last year it was Telstra. Both obviously have a security professional consulting type capability that they're trying to offer, and it really is hard to get some of these things right.
I've had a happy experience with AVG up until then, so I swapped over to Kaspersky. Kaspersky is an antivirus protector, doesn't look for netware, got clobbered again. I've lost 3 terabytes of data, I'm sorry, reconstructing it. I went across to Macintosh, and you might comment whether Mac OS 10 is more reliable or more or less vulnerable than Windows 7 or Ubuntu 9. Do you have a view which is a reliable system, or they're all equally vulnerable?
I think they've all got their vulnerabilities. You can't say that one's a lot more vulnerable than another. It comes down to attackers are based on market share. That's why Windows is such a common attack target, because more people are running Windows. We saw Charlie Miller started attacking Apple Mac OS X based installations, and he was doing a hack a day type campaign, and he was getting lots of issues with Apple Mac. We see a lot of issues with Linux as well. There's been a lot of kernel DDoS issues, like local DDoS issues for users that have a logon. Solaris had a real doozy a couple of years ago. You could telnet-f root on the system to get root level access, and that was a regression from a vulnerability way back in Solaris 4. So I don't think anyone is better than another. Although I will say I like peer reviewers. Really good thing. It comes down to quality as well, and the likes of OpenBSD have a lot of human eyes check every piece of code that's being checked into the version control system. There's those sorts of controls which are needed, I think, to get better system security at the end of the day. Let's take one up there quickly.
I know the problem with identity is not new. They had science fiction fans that writing letters to the editor, signing their friends' names for
all of these issues aren't new. It's just it's the new tool or new technology in place which is being used in terms of exercising these. So we've seen organised crime has been around for donkey's years, but that's now moved into the technological space because that's where there's money to be made.
Okay. Last question.
Normally I'm against the death penalty. There's one exception. So I guess in a few cases where somebody's been definitively prosecuted, what kind of sentences are they getting? I mean, they cause millions of people to pull their hair out. So it's a major crime. So
quite often they don't get caught because they're in non-extraditable countries, and just they don't get found. But the ones that do, so Gary McKinnon, for example, was a British-based hacker who he was breaking into US defence machines looking for evidence of UFOs, and he got caught because he got into a lot of the military computers, and he's still undergoing he's still going through court because the US are trying to extradite him back to the States. So it's
But there have been cases where people have been prosecuted, and what did they get?
They have, but typically they're getting there's that. But, I don't know what the longest sentence is, but it wouldn't be over 10 years. And in terms of damages, certainly these people don't have millions of dollars to be able to pay up to the victims for compensation.
But they can be fast or like.
Yeah, they could, but I don't think such a thing has happened yet. It's 10 years is probably the most I would have thought, that sort of scale of jail sentence time.
Okay, just so you know, there are snacks are outside. You can still sit here and ask questions of Craig.
I'll stay here for a few minutes. And then
You're welcome to go outside and have snacks or stay in here for a few more questions. So you might want to stretch your leg further as well.
Yeah, it's interesting.